Welcome to the Behind Beliefs and Behaviors podcast, where we take you on a journey of what is behind the specific beliefs and behaviors that impact individuals and organizations. With our guests, we get to the root cause of what stands in the way of everything from health, wealth, and relationships to leadership, community transformation, and societal progress. From topics on leadership, psychological safety, corporate culture and communication, to parenting, trauma, relationships, personal health, and intimacy, this podcast is sure to get you to the source and provide you practical tips to transform your life one root cause at a time. I am your host, Dr. Maisha Claiborne. I'm a physician, a coach, a consultant, and an expert in trauma-informed communication. The founder of the Mind Remapping Company, I help individuals and organizations better understand the brain, behavior, and the root of false beliefs so that you can more effectively listen, communicate, connect, and create fulfilling relationships and results in your personal and professional life. Join us every Monday morning at 8 a.m. and let's get to the root cause and discover what's behind your beliefs and behaviors. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Dr. Maisha, and always very excited to be with you on these episodes of Behind Beliefs and Behaviors. And today's topic, we are talking about behind a sense of belonging. And so in our lives, and particularly, as you know, I do a lot of work with organizations, a lot of workshops around psychological safety, building trust, and even navigating conflict and difficult conversations. If you have been listening, if you follow me, you may know that a couple of weeks ago, I did a workshop. I did a virtual workshop on navigating conflict and difficult conversations. It was well received, and it's something that it was sort of giving a taste of what's inside of the course, Communication That Transforms, Building Psychological Safety Through Trauma-Informed Communication. And so I wanted to give a little bit of an insight as to what are the kinds of things that you learn inside of this training, this virtual online training, which, by the way, I think I've shared very excitedly, has been accredited for continuing medical education. So if you are a physician, if you are a nurse, I know the nurse accrediting organizations, the AANC, does accept CME as credits towards your continuing education. If you know a nurse, if you know a physician, if you're a leader in an organization, healthcare organization, you want to check out this course. And you can do that by going to mindremappingacademy.com and going to the online course tab. But coming back to why I did this course all together and what I want to talk about today is really this bringing in the space of connection. We are human connection beings. Like the space of belonging, the space of connection is where we thrive. We are not beings that are created to be in isolation. We are beings created to be in community. And even if you look at anthropologically back in the day, people existed in community. That's how they survived. They survived in community, being connected. And when a person was othered, was kicked out of the community, it increased their risk of harm and of death. And so we are built to be connected. We are built to be in community, but we have in our society created division. We have created silos in particular ways. And so what it does, it pulls apart that sense of belonging in a lot of people, because populations have been othered for their belief systems, for the color of their skin, for their gender identities, for their gender period, for their religious and spiritual beliefs and practices. Just because they're different, this culture of oppression has been created and has divided and siloed us. So how do we as we do this work in our communities to create, to undo and dismantle this division and further the work of creating belonging, what is the foundation of that? What is the foundation of that? Well, that's what we're talking about today, right? Trust and safety are at the foundation of belonging. And so, oftentimes, when I do my workshops in psychological safety, I do touch on trust. But before I do that, towards the beginning, I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I know that in past episodes, I have talked about it here. However, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've ever, you can pull it up on on the internet. Not if you're driving and listening though, but you could pull it up, and what you'll see is it's this pyramid. And at the end, and the pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the top of the pyramid is self actualization. It is the space of being one's best self. Okay. But at the base of that pyramid is the very base is this food, shelter, like the basic needs: food, shelter, water, clothing. That is at the base of the pyramid, right? So, but then just above that is safety. So, only second to food, shelter, basic needs, water, air, clothing is safety. All right. And we need to feel safe in order to reach that self actualization, to be able to be our best self. It's the second in the base. But here's the thing: what's above that is belonging, is that sense of belonging. And so, again, only third to basic needs and safety is belonging. However, what's important to recognize is, as before you can get to belonging, you need to feel safe. Before you can create belonging in a community, in an organization, before where there's this work of equity, inclusion, and belonging, but there's not a lot of conversation about creating trust and safety. And trust and safety come before a person can feel belonging, feel the sense of belonging. So think about it. Think about when you have gone into any room, if it's a conference or a group, or you've started a new job. The first thing that you're asking is, can I trust these people? Can I trust their sincerity? Can I trust in their integrity, that what they say they're going to do, that they actually do? People are asking this of their organizations. Can I trust that the organization, that the leaders in the organization, when they say they're going to do something, that they actually do it? Map to your household. Children are asking this question, even though they may not be consciously asking it. They're observing. Can I trust that when my parent says they're going to do something, that they do it? And if they can't do it, that they communicate it and make a new promise, right? Can I trust your sincerity, that you actually mean what you say? The congruence. Does what you say match your actions? Can I trust that? Can I trust your authenticity, that you're bringing me your actual self, and that you're not bringing me some representative, then going back into behind closed doors and backbiting and gossiping and doing something completely different than what you showed me? These are the questions that you probably ask when you walk into a room with the people you don't know. Even if you're not consciously asking it, the unconscious mind is running this script. Can I trust your intent, your agenda, right? Does your agenda, or does your intent have my best interest at heart? Can I trust that? So these are like questions that when you walk into the room with a group of people, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a new job, whether it's a conference and you're networking, whether you're meeting, maybe you're just meeting a person one on one. This is a script that's running in the background that you're evaluating constantly before you feel like there's a sense of home, there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of connection. And so if that is not present in any condition, in an organization, in a group, in a community, then that person is going to feel disconnected. Then that person is going to feel othered, even if there's not an overt othering. And so when we think about this aspect of trust, and I often talk about the way I talk about safety in the context of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But when I talk about trust, I talk about another framework, which is Erickson's stages of development. And in Erickson's stages of development, there are all of these various aspects that a young person needs in order to fully develop into a well-adjusted or self, or a healthy self, sense of self. And the very first one from infancy is trust. Again, that trust builds the safety. So trust begets safety. When a person is not always looking over their shoulder, then they can relax. It settles the nervous system. It settles the mind so they can feel relaxed to bring their best self. And they begin to feel safe, right? When those questions are answered, can I trust your sincerity? Can I trust your congruency? Can I trust your integrity? Can I trust your authenticity? Can I trust your intention, your agenda? What agenda is your agenda? Is the agenda you're telling me actually your agenda? The congruency. When those questions are answered in a way that settles the mind and settles the nervous system, then a person can settle into connecting, and that feeling of belonging begins to occur, right? Now, let's be clear that this sense of belonging, or this cultivation of trust and safety, is not a one-time thing. It's not a one-time thing, because we have to continue to put deposits over time. So oftentimes trust is assumed, or we trust is assumed based on what we think a person should do. We think that, oh, we are trustworthy people, right? How we see ourselves, we feel like, well, others should trust us automatically. But if you remember the 3 positions of listening, if you were to put yourself into their eyes, into second position, then you can see trust is, people are come at different levels of trust based on their filters, based on their past experiences. And we have to honor that. And we have to understand that trust is earned, and it is earned by actions consistent with words and over time. And so the question is, how are you cultivating that trust? What are the actions that you are taking? What are the ways that you are being? Because I think that while trust is an actionable space, it is also a way of a being. So what are the actions that you are taking, and the way of being that you are displaying, that are either contributing to an increase in trust and putting deposits in trust accounts, or contributing to withdrawal of trust and lowering the balance of the trust account? All right. So as you look at the various areas of your life, home, work, leadership, community, parenthood, what is your way of being? Look at where are you depositing and where are you withdrawing? Look at where are you congruent and where are you not? Be honest with yourself about whether you're transparently communicating your intention and your agenda. And if you're not, what is preventing you? Why? Because sometimes we don't communicate our whole agenda because we don't feel safe. We're not trusting. And oftentimes, again, based on our own past experience, based on our own memories, based on our own upbringing, based on what we've been told about the world, based on what we see and witness in the world, we don't extend trust. So it does go both ways. There's a saying that you cannot receive with a closed fist, right? So we have to extend trust. And when we extend that trust, and we have to have discernment as well in who we're extending trust to. But when a person is demonstrating trustworthiness, then we can extend our trust in order to receive trust from another. All right. So how do we then know a person is demonstrating trustworthiness? Well, we can listen to our intuition. And look at whether those questions are being answered. Like, is a person demonstrating congruence in their words and actions over time? Is a person are you noticing that they're very authentic in their expression? You notice how they are here is how they are there, is how they are everywhere, right? That's the authenticity. Like, there's congruence. There's no, we've got a face here, we've got a face there, we've got a face here. Now, I'm not talking about code switching because that's a different conversation. What I'm talking about is the innermost being, right? Are they are they able to be authentic in all of their places? Do they have your best interest, and have they demonstrated that they have your best interest at heart in their actions, and they're not only self-serving, right? Are they extending their trust to you? Like, are they demonstrating vulnerability? Are they demonstrating fallibility and transparency? And so that is one of the ways that you can begin to discern if a person is trustworthy, so that you can extend that trust. But also you want to be looking at whether you're being and demonstrating those qualities as well. All right. And so this is one of the aspects that I teach in workshops, but it's one of the major aspects that I teach in my Communication That Transforms online course. And as I've shared, this course is built for individuals to take it, but it works extremely well when teams and groups of people also take it on, because then you can facilitate these conversations. We can facilitate these conversations to look at how do we increase the trust and safety on our team, in our organizations, in our community. And when there is increased trust, increased safety, and increased sense of belonging, and people can bring their full self, that is when ideas flow. That is when innovation occurs. That is when productivity heightens. That is when sustainability becomes possible. People don't burn out when they have a community they feel like they belong, and they feel like they're heard, they're seen, they're valued. They feel safe to speak up when something isn't working, when there's an unacceptable behavior, knowing that person will listen to them in a way and make adjustment, and they won't be gaslit, they won't be punished, they won't be humiliated, they won't be invalidated. When you have that in a team and in an organization, people stay, community grows. And so I want to invite you to begin to look at, where can you cultivate this in your spaces, on your teams, in your communities, as a leader, and where is it missing? Developing an assessment, that there's always the question, because trust and psychological safety can feel so nebulous and abstract. And I've had the question, how do you assess that? And so I'm developing an assessment that will give organizations inquiry and insight into, how do I assess where that is? How do I authentically assess? Because guess what? If you just ask people and they don't feel safe, guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to tell you. You can't assume people feel safe because they're not saying anything, because oftentimes people don't say things because they don't feel safe. Guess what they do? They quietly leave. and then they overtly leave. And that goes for organizations, that goes for relationships, that goes for family members. And so how do you assess that? And that's what this assessment will be about. So I'll keep you up to date on that. But in the meantime, if you want to begin to really jump in and start to learn, well, how do I discern? How do I really understand the concept of psychological safety, trust, and building emotional intelligence? And then how do I know what to say and when to say, especially if mistakes are made, if I do accidentally or unintentionally harm someone or offend someone? How do I mend that? Because making mistakes is part of relationships. Conflict and confrontation is part of relationships. But relationships and trust can be restored, and there's a way to do it that actually quickly rebuilds, and restores the integrity and the connection so that the trust can be rebuilt more quickly. People can be very forgiving when there's a foundation of trust and safety. People are not as forgiving when there's not. So if you are wanting to know more about that, you can reach out to me directly, but you can go to, if you're watching the video, the website on the screen, mindremappingacademy.com, mindremappingacademy.com. And if you're listening, we'll have all this information in the show notes. But I invite you to check out the course, Communication That Transforms. I invite you to actually take it to your teams. If you're an organization, invite me in to speak and facilitate conversations around it. Take your team through as a cohort through the course. Take your leaders through as a cohort through the course. Facilitate a retreat around it. And all you need to do is reach out to me in order for me to do that. And for those of you who are listening who are in healthcare, there's now continuing medical education available, 22 CME credits available, which, as we know, in the physician world is almost a year's worth of credits for licensing and maintenance of certification purposes. So take this, what we talked about, trust and safety, share this episode with a colleague, a friend, a family member, a leader in your organization, and really begin to reflect and look at, how am I contributing to deposits or withdrawals, and how are other people in my life, and how can I now empower them to begin to reflect. And so with that, as always, I thank you for listening. And, there's no podcast without my listeners. So I just want to thank you around that. And if you're interested in working with me, reach out. And until the next time, until the next episode, stay empowered. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We know that without the listeners, there is no podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe so you do not miss when we drop our next episode, and share this podcast with a friend, a family member, and a colleague, at least one person in your life today. This episode was brought to you by the Mind Remapping Company, helping organizations create psychologically and emotionally safe cultures that make their employees and leaders feel seen, heard, respected, welcome, and valued, all while fostering a thriving, engaged, and healthy workforce for the organization. Is your organization in need of a speaker? I speak about topics like psychological and emotional safety, trauma-informed communication, and employee well-being. If this is aligned with your organizational inclusion, belonging, or leadership goals, contact me, Dr. Maisha, by going to www.mindremappingacademy.com. That's mindremappingacademy.com. Finally, we train leaders, but we also train coaches. If you're interested in becoming a trauma-informed coach, visit our website as well and check out our NLP coach, trainings, and certifications. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, stay empowered.